Olamide.
Yes, sir.
Olamide just released his sixth album.
Yeah.
Um, it has been overshadowed by the NSAS protest.
Yeah, rightly so.
Rightly so. Yes,
Rightly
NSAS,
so.
that's very important.
He has also kind of slowed down the promotional processes after the release of the album, and rightly so. He understands the concept of it. And when Runtown and Jamo Piper and Fireboy, everybody came out for the protest, he sort of said, "Oh, if I was in the country, I would have helped you guys." Blah blah blah. You understand where he was coming from?
So he's not in the country.
Yeah, he said he wasn't in the country at the time.
What are your thoughts?
Thought the album was beautiful. My opinion, right? Before this album dropped, the conversation was that the trifecta for Olamide was Baddest Guy Valivet, YBNL, and Street OT. But looking back right now, I would say the album that is, in terms of quality, right? When you consider the things that made those albums great were that Olamide went into those albums and showcased everything that made him Olamide. He was singing, he was rapping, he was experimenting. On the Baddest Guy Valley, you had a song like Higher with Bears. You had a song like, he was doing a truckload of things. But when you look at Street OT and YBNL, the problem with those albums is that they had a lot of fillers. Slightly too long. Not slightly too long. Too long. Those albums could have done with 5-6 tracks cut off from each of them. But with Carpe Diem, the album was too balanced. As a matter of fact, the singles made sense. When, like, putting those singles into the album, they made greater sense. And guess what? They were the weakest songs on the album. And it's Olamide's shortest album after his EPs and Two Kings with Fino. 30 minutes for 12 songs. Olamide is aware of the time. He came into this album and he was making music that were appealing to the soul. He was honest. So this album was basically, and after the debacle of the 999 EP, which was a terrible body of work, terrible by the way, but it shows us that Olamide was experimenting at the time. He wanted to rap in English a lot, but one track that really shone out of that EP was Rich and Famous. You remember that record? That's a great record. So Carpe Diem was like, imagine the Olamide of Rich and Famous with the Olamide of Melo Melo and the Olamide of say Baddest Guy Valiant. What he was doing here was, on this album, Olamide was at his most vulnerable and his most honest moment. He was talking about losing his, on Triumphant, for example, he was talking about losing both his parents before he got when he was about to get money. He talked about smoking through the night because of frustration, drinking through the night because of frustration. He talked about how he used to change the color of his hair because of depression. On the song featuring Feruzi, he talked, it was so obvious that he was talking about his wife. Olamide basically spoke to a female fan base and he killed it. A lot of people are going to say this album is not good, but what this album is that it's a slow burn. It catches up to you slowly. It's like a Quentin Tarantino movie. You have to be really patient to enjoy it. If you're not patient, you're not going to like it. I think this album is really good.
So how does this album relate to, you mentioned the EP?
Yes.
999.
Yes.
999.
Yes.
And also his deal with Empire.
Yes. Basically, you have to look at it this way. When Olamide released 999 EP, the album before then was also very terrible. Let's just say from Eyomi Weather, the quality of Olamide's albums have not been good. They've been really bad. Two Kings was good. Had a lot of good moments, but it wasn't really a body of work that had a lot of replay value. But on 999 EP, Olamide went straight down. Look at it this way. 2018, Olamide had some great moments, but the year ended with him trying to recalibrate his YBNL record label. Signed a lot of young artists. Before then, there was Lighter was there was Devoli Boy. In the final quarter of the year, you had Limerick, you had Fireboy DNL, you had Yomi Blaze, you had Picasso Rap, and a lot of these guys. He released a joint album with them. That album should have come much earlier with them. Adekunle Gold, Chinko Ekun, but we accepted it was fine. But the songs, Olamide didn't really have a hit of that album. There was Musigbana on the album, but it didn't come off that album. It was a single that came before the album. In January of that year, Olamide released Woske. That was a hit. But from there, things sort of got hard for Olamide. Spirits, the single he released in April or May, terrible. It didn't go anywhere. But when Olamide dropped Pawon, it felt like Olamide was trying to compete with the Naira Marley and Zlatan. We wrote an article at the time, the article is on Pulse. The discussion was, Olamide, as much as these boys got inspired by Olamide can't go to the extremes that they can. Moreover, Olamide was getting into the earliest times of his veteran days. He's an OG, he was a legend at the time. Olamide is still a legend. His legend was still a while back. So he can't afford to be putting women behind on social media as a promotional tactic. It wouldn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And that, as much as that got Olamide got Pawon some traction, and Pawon sort of entered into the mainstream consciousness, it didn't really have the staying power. So you have to look at what Olamide tried to do when he dropped the EP in January. At the time, it wasn't really clear what he was doing. But now when I look back at it, you have to give Olamide credit, because what it's telling me is that Olamide really wanted to know what works. What works for the market and what would work for his brand going forward. And look at it this way. The change of guard really disrupted the Nigerian soundscape. It disrupted everything, changed the rules. The silos of the Nigerian music industry and the listening palettes and the listening habits have evolved drastically and aggressively. Nobody knows what obtains. There are no rules. If there were no rules before, nobody even knows anything now. As a matter of fact, it's more about strategy now than good music. So Olamide went back. He released those records. He was rapping in English. It changed on that EP. But the problem was the change wasn't veritable. He didn't bring a lot of substance. When he was rapping in English, wasn't saying anything. Even there's a reason why Olamide didn't shoot a video for Omah, or he didn't release a video for Omah. Because the song was filled with vulgarity rather. But by the time Olamide signed his Empire deal, he announced that he and Fireboy were going to release their respective albums later in the year. We still didn't know what Olamide had coming. But it was what that 199 EP basically was. It was a sacrificial lamb to help Olamide understand the direction it should go. Carpe Diem is not exactly new, but the direction, in terms of Olamide's journey till now, the sound itself. This is not Zanku. This is not Lamba as it should be. Olamide was doing the South African genre, that South African house genre, that Babes Odumo, they're popular for doing. He did it on the song with Bad Boy Teams. On Do Better, Olamide recalibrated that secretary sound that he was doing in the mid-2010s. He recalibrated this, and the sound was beautiful. On a Shilalo, for example, Olamide would talk about sex. Even the vulgarity in his tone, he was mixing them with innuendos and euphemism. The creativity of this album and the A&R, the thinking that went into it is so commendable. It shows that Olamide is aware. And a lot of artists are not this aware. Artists are too cocky to think in this direction. What came out of this album, a lot of people might not like it, but in terms of cohesion, sonic and topical cohesion, and resonance of those topics and the sounds, if you calm down to listen to this album, only Baddest Guy Ever Living is better than this album in terms of cohesion. But the problem is that the biggest songs of YBNL and Street OT are way bigger than the songs on this album. Okay. So the argument is going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for people to have.
Where does this Carpe Diem rank in this scholar?
I would say second. After Baddest Guy Ever Living, in terms of quality, right, and in terms of replay value, if you truly play it, if you want to play this out, don't play it for what you want it to be. Just listen to it. You will discover that in terms of cohesion and balance, topical resonance, the themes and everything Olamide talked about, only Baddest Guy Ever Living, which is his magnum opus, is better. However, if you are talking about his greatest albums, for impact, it's probably going to rank at number 5. And what is that order? You're going to be talking about Paris Guy Oliver, YBN, Street OT, Rhapsody, and maybe Lagos now, in a way. In your Mayweather before Lagos now, to be honest, yeah.
Do you expect it to make any end of the list?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I wouldn't say it should. It's too good not to make 7 year endings. Yeah.
In general now, how do you define Olamide? How great is he as an artist and as a rapper?
In terms, let's pick the rapper part first. Shout out to you, Titu, later. He wrote something in an article some months back. He said, in terms of Nigerian hip hop, there are 3 greats, genuine greats, right? Olamide, Emma Baga, and Mode 9. Nigerian rap music. Look at it this way. Mode 9 is the lyricist. You can't touch it. Olamide is a commercial guy. Who else in Nigerian mainstream by the scruff of the neck? He was giving them lamba, and he could actually rap. Vector came on Loose Talk. You remember when Vector came on Loose Talk? He said, Olamide said, that was a double entendre. A lot of people don't realize that. The same thing on this album. Olamide was staying on this album. He said, I'm singing in your ear, I'm JB Mosquito. That means I'm singing in your ear. I want to eat you like mosquito. That's a bar. Emma Abaga is like the best of both worlds. He had a little bit of commercial appeal, but Emma Abaga is such a great music man. Whew. But Olamide too is an amazing yana. And in terms of actually going on to create greatness, he has done that 7. So when you think about the rap part, whoever you choose to put at number 1, that's your business. You will have a point regardless of who you put at number 1. But Olamide is definitely top 3. Arguably number 1. But in terms of artists, where are we going to rank from? We did a list some months back. We did the top 5. Olamide made our top 5. And I think that's where Olamide ranks. Olamide is a great artist. A lot of people don't want to understand that, especially because he has sort of slowed down over the past 18 months. But that man's greatness is huge, and that's facts only.